At 18, I was thrust into a chaotic storm of emotions when my parents unceremoniously dismissed me with a wrinkled $20 bill. My sister deserved the future, not me, they declared, and I took it like a punch in the gut. Dad's steely tone and Mom's icy grip as the door clicked shut behind me made it clear I was now officially on my own. There I stood, drenched and defeated, with naught but a suitcase and a dying porch light to illuminate the cold reality of my exile. Fast forward 5 years, and that flickering porch light had returned to me, but this time I was behind the desk. The tables had turned, and my sister Leia stood before me, desperate for a chance. Who would have thought I'd find myself here, serving up opportunities when I had once been the one left in the shadows? But before unraveling that juicy tale, where are you listening from? Because I surely can't be the only one who got the boot when things got difficult. My childhood home in Bloomington was an intoxicating blend of lemon cleaner and engine oil, an aromatic reminder of my mother's fixation on appearances and my father's relentless grip on control. From the outside, we resembled one big happy family, but inside lurked a strict hierarchy that, unsurprisingly, put Leia at the pinnacle and me crouched in the corner like a forgotten laundry basket. Dad was Mr. Martin Avery, an ex-teacher turned garage owner who believed that sweat equaled worth. Then there was Mama Lane, the queen of tidy bookkeeping, balancing numbers just like her emotional roller coaster, controlled and neatly contained. When Leia hit Sweet 16, she was showered with a used Honda and a big red ribbon while I unwrapped a bookstore gift card. "Thanks, Mom. You love reading, right?" she said, and I couldn't help but choke back the sting of disappointment. But that splintered feeling began to mend the day the letter from Indiana State arrived, draped in blue. I'd toiled away after school, tutoring kids, fixing appliances, and believed I was finally stepping into the light. I held that acceptance letter high as if declaring a revolution, but Dad, the ever-practical one, merely grunted into his newspaper. "You'll have to be realistic," he proclaimed without so much as glancing my way as I shared my news. Oh, that word, realistic. My skin crawled. It stung like 1,000 bee stings combined with a punch of cold water. I didn't work that hard for nothing. I secured a scholarship. I tried to assert myself, telling them I could make up the difference, yet all I got in return was Dad's icy challenge to be independent. Then there was Leia, basking in her spotlight, her phone buzzing with praise that silenced my unspoken dreams. But that tension snapped like a twig, and I finally broke my silence, spilling out years of pent-up grievances. "You don't even ask what I want." The air turned thick, and I could almost hear the gears grinding in their heads. Mom unearthed a $20 bill, pressing it into my palm with a shaky resolve. "Be independent," she forced out. It felt like a final act, and I knew the clock was ticking. So, that very night, I packed my suitcase with a few notebooks and my acceptance letter tucked safely into my jacket pocket. The rain had already started when I walked out. Glancing back, I found Leia's silhouette behind the glass, a mere ghost of the sister who had been my own personal judge. And just like that, with a slam that echoed through reverberating thunder, I stepped into the unknown, my name swallowed whole by the storm. The first night of my metal bench experience was a lesson in coldness. Perched on the slick, rain-soaked bus stop seat, I stared at a letter from Indiana State, wondering if it would somehow ignite a spark of hope amidst my misery. My $20 bill, already damp, looked like a soggy reminder of my woes. Each car whizzed by splashed raindrops in my direction like antagonistic little puddle monsters. By midnight, even the streetlights buzzed weakly, shivering from the chill, echoing my determination to find a job, a room, anything but this dreadful night. By the third night, my shivering transformation into a feverish puddle became distinct. The frigid air scraped my lungs, causing me to wheeze almost as loudly as the passing traffic. Then a man's voice leaped out of the dull hum of the night. "Hey, you okay?" David Reed, a friendly face with the kind of grey hair that exuded warmth, stopped to help. I hardly believed anyone would care enough to intervene. He draped his jacket over me and called for help, sticking around like a loyal dog until the ambulance arrived. The fluorescent lights of the hospital assaulted my heavy eyelids like an unwanted wake-up call. A nurse attached a wrist tag, and the word unknown after my address hit me like a slap. While recovering, I was presented with a styrofoam cup of orange juice and a $20 bill, a parting gift from David. "You'll need it more than he does," the nurse assured me, and I clutched the bill like a lifeline. 2 days later, still weak and frail, I was handed a pamphlet for Haven House Shelter, a thin slice of hope squeezed between a laundromat and an aging pawn shop. Walking into Haven House felt like stepping into warmth after a perpetual winter. Ruth Nolan, the woman behind it all, looked me right in the eye, a rarity I hadn't experienced in a long time. "You get one bed, one lock, one chance to rebuild," she said, her voice steady. I took that chance, scrubbing floors, folding sheets, and cleaning bathrooms until my hands cracked from bleach. Work became my identity. I was no longer the nameless unknown. The other women referred to me as the quiet one, but I preferred the anonymity in my newfound routine. Ruth announced a job opening one day at Alvarez's diner, a scrawled note pinned to the bulletin board. My heart skipped. This could be my ticket to a fresh start. The following morning, I marched in borrowed shoes toward the diner, greeted by the comforting scent of coffee mingling with burnt toast. Behind the counter stood Elena Alvarez, sleeves rolled up, her eyes quickly sizing me up. "Have you ever waited tables?" she asked with skepticism. "No, but I'm a fast learner," I proclaimed. Before I could finish, I was handed an apron like a cloak of destiny. Nights at Alvarez's were a rhythmic whirlwind of sizzling bacon and the rhythmic hiss of the coffee machine. My body protested, arms sore, feet blistered, but for the first time, I embraced the exhaustion as a badge of honor. Elena was a no-nonsense kind of boss, her sharp corrections teaching me to anticipate needs before they were voiced. I quickly learned the dance of the diner, mastering the patterns of chaos amidst the ringing orders and clamoring customers, understanding that silence was sometimes just a stepping stone towards something greater. As each day passed in the diner, I began to transform my silence into resilience. I noticed how customers came and went when they wanted coffee, what they would order, and which supplies emptied the fastest. The diner itself became a sanctuary of sorts, where one could piece together a life in the midst of chaos. The simple act of serving plates and making connections with the regulars filled me with a sense of purpose. Each syrup bottle I filled, each order I took, rewrote the narrative of my life, sending me down a path I'd never dared to dream of before. By the second week at the diner, I transformed into the organization guru. Salt shakers were refilled, condiments were arranged as if they were royalty sorted by delivery date, and invoices were stacked neatly by the supplier in a proud little tower. Every mundane task was noted in my trusty, slightly tattered notebook, which resided comfortably in my apron pocket. It was my lifeline to an orderly universe amidst the chaos of greasy fries and clattering plates. One sunny morning, the delivery truck lumbered into the alley, running late yet again. Ben Carter, the jovial driver, jumped out humming away as if he was late for a Broadway show rather than a diner drop-off. "Sorry, traffic," he chirped, rolling in crates like a determined farmer. We teamed up to unload eggs and other goodies, enjoying our mini farm-to-table moment, contrasting the city's concrete jungle. "You always sort stuff like that," I said. He shot me a grin that felt like sunshine on a cloudy day. "You've got a head for systems," he remarked, and I melted a little inside. It meant something. That night after closing, I unleashed my inner mad scientist, sketching an elaborate delivery schedule on napkins. I drew arcs and arrows, connections that mapped a flawless supply chain in my head. When Elena stumbled upon my scribbles the next morning, her brows furrowed in contemplation before she folded it away thoughtfully. "You did this." I nodded nervously, and she slipped it into her apron. "Keep thinking like that. The world runs on chaos. People like you keep it moving." Those words echoed in my mind long after she had walked away. Weeks rolled on, and my role at the diner morphed into an intriguing case study of logistics. Armed with archaic spreadsheets from the shelter's old computer, I meticulously plotted out supply flows and mapped out delivery routes. When Ben's truck decided to throw a tantrum one fateful day, I confidently rearranged the deliveries, and voila, everything arrived punctually. "You're the human GPS," he chuckled, but those words tickled something new inside me. Maybe I wasn't just surviving, I was crafting the future. Then came the day Ben surprised me with a flyer for a clerk position at Everline Freight. "You'd be perfect," he urged. My initial reaction was an epic eye roll. They surely wouldn't hire someone sans degree. "Try anyway," he insisted, and, much to my own astonishment, I did. I printed a resume that had definitely absorbed its share of diner coffee spills and, with a hopeful heart, walked into the office of Tom Whitaker, the manager. In the interview, Tom tossed me straightforward queries about organization and problem-solving, and I answered honestly, no sugarcoating here. He leaned back contemplatively, and in that moment, I held my breath as he said, "You've got no degree, but you've got instinct. We can work with that." That single phrase flipped the script for me. This wasn't just a job, it was a launching pad to something extraordinary. Throughout the next year, I rediscovered the thrill of control, of systems, of data giving rise to structure. I began to rewrite the roots of inefficiency that others ignored. No longer was I waiting for a table, I was crafting a full-blown network of systems. 5 years later, what started as a little diner notebook morphed into Emerge Operations Group, my baby, nestled snugly in a drafty office above a print shop, powered by sheer will and an ancient laptop. By the age of 23, I stood tall, overlooking a skyline view of Seattle from my newly founded empire. My company helped small businesses operate as if they were industry titans, harvesting potential without waste. Framed reminders of my past adorned my walls, a hospital wristband and a wrinkled $20 bill from my mother, each telling their own story of what it meant to be forgotten. Just as I was settling back into the groove, Maya, my HR manager, entered with news that rattled the frame, a promising candidate with the name Leah Avery. For a split second, my world tilted, and the storm clouds gathered. "Schedule her for Tuesday," I ordered, half curious, half nervous, but all in. Maya's knock echoed through the polished conference room, and I felt a mix of excitement and dread. As the door swung open, in walked Leah, strutting down the hall like a star in her own show. Her heels clicked with the confidence I had once watched her flaunt back in Bloomington, soaking up the adoration of our parents. Today, she looked poised, impeccably styled, the same way Mom used to prepare her for recitals. But her polite smile only masked the awkward tension as she failed to recognize me. "Good morning," I chirped, inviting her to take a seat. Maya, ever the enthusiastic facilitator, introduced me as the esteemed Miss Eva Avery. It was as if the name summoning from her lips flashed like a neon sign between us, catching Leah off guard. I could see her fingers tremble slightly as she absorbed the realization. There was a flicker of confusion in her eyes as she gingerly echoed my name, trying to bridge the chasm of our estrangement. I gestured for her to continue. It felt like a theatrical performance with everyone holding their breath. Her resume depicted a competent candidate, project management, team coordination, and the ability to lead under duress. Each articulate word seemed rehearsed, a script she had practiced for years. I listened, letting the long pauses punctuate the atmosphere like a dramatic punctuation mark. As she fidgeted in her seat, I leaned in, curious to pry open the cracks in her confidence. I asked about handling conflict, and just like that, the air shifted. She straightened up before recounting a staff dispute with a sense of authority. But as I pressed her on the meaning of fairness, the tension crackled. Her answer, "It means making sure everyone has the same chance," lingered in the air. "Yes, Leah. Everyone." Her gaze wandered behind me, likely tracing the framed memories reflecting our past, and in an instant, the realization dawned. Recognition washed over her face, and I watched in silence as the familiar horror unfolded in her expression. As I reminded her we were there to discuss her qualifications, the rapid transformation of her emotions was palpable. I thought I didn't survive, she stammered, but I quietly finished her thought, a mere whisper in my own mind. Memories we both shared dripped like rain on the glass, filling me with bittersweet nostalgia. She stumbled over her next words, trying to regain her composure. I didn't know. Yet this wasn't about what we had lost but what lay ahead. Her voice brittle, she admitted, "They miss you." I studied Leia, the old dynamics flickering between us like a movie reel, her glorious ribbons, my solitary silence. Their choices, I reminded her, were deliberate. But there she was, whispering her guilt about inaction, barely holding the thread of conversation. I reminded her, "You didn't have to." Silence can be a warm blanket but also a shroud that suffocates the truth. Sometimes it's all about whom we choose to be in the end. Instinctively, I noted the tears that slipped down her cheeks, unbidden and raw. Surely, in moments like this, vulnerability intertwines with strength. I tried to soften the edges of the mayhem, a silent acknowledgement that anger is a luxury I outgrew. In my quiet reflections, I built a life, not around resentment, but around resilience and growth. We were not the children of a storybook anymore. We were two women navigating a complex legacy that went far beyond us. She nodded slowly, carrying the weight of years that seemed to hug her too tightly. "Are you going to hire me?" she asked, enthusiasm dripping from her voice. I glanced at her resume, then back into her uncertain eyes. "That depends," I replied, eager to set the tone. "Can you follow leadership that values fairness over favoritism?" Her response felt like a tentative step. "I can try." "Good," I said firmly, "because here, we build only with fairness." As she left, my mother materialized in the doorway, an anxious presence radiating uncertainty. "So, what do you think?" she asked expectantly. I turned my gaze to the rain-streaked window. The droplets formed patterns reminiscent of a night 5 years prior. "Give her the position," I concluded, feeling the importance of my choice. Maya's eyes widened in disbelief. "Are you sure? Everyone deserves a chance." I murmured in response, "Even those who once denied you yours." That evening, after the workplace had emptied out, I stood by the window, reveling in the soft blur of lights through the rain. Somewhere, my sister was making her way home, mulling over our conversation. Maybe she was finally grasping that forgiveness doesn't necessarily echo mercy, sometimes it just means setting boundaries. I reached out to touch the frame on the wall, where a fragile $20 bill lay encased in glass, a testament to a past adversity. "They gave me a door slam," I mused. "I built an open one." Suddenly, my phone buzzed, a call from Mom. I let it ring twice, then silenced it. The vibrations faded, replaced by the calming cadence of rain and the city's hum below. For the first time in ages, the silence wasn't haunting, it was liberating, a sweet sense of peace washing over me. The next morning, sunlight burst through the clouds, transforming the rain into a crystalline shimmer on my office window. The city looked serene, as if it exhaled alongside me. Leia arrived bright and early, nervous and clutching a notebook like it was a safety blanket. As we crossed paths in the hallway, she paused. "Thank you for giving me a chance," she said softly. I couldn't help but nod encouragingly. "Earn it," I replied in a tone that was stern yet not unkind. Throughout the day, I observed Leia working, quiet, focused, trembling on the edge of self-doubt, yet pouring effort into every task. Curiously, something within me began to uncoil, not forgiveness, but a delicious sense of release. Later, when the office lay empty again, I stood before my desk, feeling the weight of 3 significant items: my hospital wristband, the framed $20 bill, and the company logo wedged between them. They transitioned from symbols of failure and survival to markers of legacy, redefining who I was. I carefully returned the framed 20 to its place and turned off the lights, whispering to the stillness, "The debt's been paid in full." That weekend marked a significant occasion. I drove back to Bloomington, my heart racing with nostalgia after 5 long years. The town felt smaller, the roads more constricted, but the old bus stop remained, a monument to memories. I left a small bouquet on the dented bench, placing the framed 20 beside it. This is where they ended me, I murmured thoughtfully, and where I began. The air was thick with the scent of rain-soaked pavement and potential. As I lingered, I didn't wait for anyone, I just absorbed the soothing melody of raindrops on the metal roof. It no longer felt harsh, but rather soothing, like nature's gentle lullaby. As I turned to leave, dawn broke, casting pale gold light over the deserted street. Everyone deserves a future, even those who've been told otherwise. If this saga resonates with you, share it, and let me know where you're listening from. Remember, you are definitely not alone.